It's interesting at the beginning because China is Australia's largest trading partner, almost 40% of Australia's exports. And so it could be that they're actually pretty close to China. And so if they're going to be giving all this information to them, they don't want China to perhaps have access to it.
This is what the report says. If the U.S. should sell the vessels to Australia, the U.S. Navy would have a shortage of attack submarines for 2 decades.
He's afraid that war is going to break out and Australia is going to not join in.
You made me actually think of Braveheart. You remember that scene where William Wallace is going into battle and he has the one clan who's supposed to flank over the mountain on the side, and they roll up, they look at it, and they just turn around and ride off. That's the potential for Australia.
One funny little finish to this story is that Australia keeps just like giving Europe the bird, if I can say that. President Trump has been highly accused of his foreign policy decisions since taking office for his second term. Here's a little evidence of that. This is back from April of 2025. And this is the AmericanProgress.org website. 100 days of the Trump administration's foreign policy, global chaos, American weakness, and human suffering. The New York Times released an article very similar around the same timeline, how Trump supercharged distrust, driving U.S. allies away. Well, the story I'm going to be telling y'all today has to do with this. It's along the same lines, but unfortunately, Trump has kind of been put into a tight position. You might say between a rock and a hard place. And is his decision warranted? And what decision should he make moving forward? So let's jump into this story. So there's a little history between the US and the UK and Australia when it comes to security agreements. One being the 1958 US-UK Mutual Defense Agreement. This allows the two nations, the United States and the United Kingdom, to exchange nuclear and other materials, equipment, and classified information for defense purposes. And there was actually an amendment to this agreement on November 14th of 2024. So just this last year. And this amendment makes the agreement enduring, eliminating the need for renewals every year. So it's kind of like, okay, we're getting a little bit more solidified on our security measures, right? And our agreements between these two nations. But there's also another agreement out there, and it is called AUKUS. So the AUKUS trilateral security agreement brings the UK, the United States, and Australia into the same boat. No pun intended. This is the U.S. Department of Defense, and here's how they summarize it. The AUKUS partnership reflects the continued commitment by Australia, UK, United States to support a free and open Indo-Pacific that is peaceful, secure, and stable. It's a very nice way of saying, beware, China, big bad. So, yeah, essentially.
And this is all Navy. This is a Navy partnership or, ocean-centered partnership, basically, ocean security partnership.
Right. And this is essentially to protect and to monitor the waters around China, right? A lot of it is the United States doesn't want to do everything, right? So like we're bringing our allies into this agreement and saying we're all going to work together. This agreement was reached under the Biden administration in 2021, but it has bipartisan support. It's received support in Congress from both sides. Everybody wants to do this essentially, or most people do, okay? Here's an important note that this agreement differs from the other one in that it provides the Australians with the close-held nuclear propulsion technology that the U.S. has only previously shared with the United Kingdom. So we've got this sort of close bond with the United Kingdom, and now we're saying, hey, Australia, we want to give you some of this technology as well. And obviously they are paying for it, but they're getting access to technology they don't currently have. On March 13th of 2023, we kind of took a step forward and said, now we're going to officially start providing you with these nuclear-powered submarines. And so that's what we're doing now. But one of the things we saw happen
that's not the same thing as a nuclear warhead attached to a submarine, because Australia
nuclear-powered is like it can run for 20 years without ever coming back to port.
Right, but we're not helping the Australia arm themselves with nukes.
Right. One of the things that happened earlier this year in February was the Australian Deputy Prime Minister, Richard Marles, visited the Pentagon and delivered the first $500 million. I wonder what kind of briefcase he was carrying to carry $500 million. Just kidding. Of a $3 billion payment that Canberra, which is the capital of Australia, promised to support the program. So they have essentially made a down payment, right? Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said during that visit President Trump is very aware and supportive of AUKUS. He also said this is not a mission in the Indo-Pacific that America can undertake by itself. So he was very supportive of it. He says Trump is very supportive of it. We also saw another thing happen in April where the first Royal Australian Navy enlisted students actually graduated from a nuclear power training here in the United States. So we see a lot of different things happening. But here's the recent news. This is what has taken place. So this is the actual area we're talking about here.
Oh, so just like half the world?
Half the world, essentially, yeah. So it's a very large security risk if there really was a problem, right? Like, this is something that's pretty important, okay? This is what happened recently. Defense Department conducting review of AUKUS security pact. So this is from June of this year, and this has raised a lot of criticism and fears where people are saying, wait, why are we conducting a review of this when we thought that that this was a solid agreement? We thought we were going to be moving forward with this. And it looks like the Trump administration is considering revoking the agreement or somehow trying to get out of it. So why would Trump be getting out of it? I'm going to open it up to some thoughts from the group, and then I'm going to jump into some of the reasons why this review might be taking place. Investing can be confusing and scary, but it doesn't have to be. Genesis Gold Group takes the guessing out of the game and guides you on your gold investment journey. We at Filibusted love the genius design of the Prepper Bar, which breaks up into sections, kind of like a chocolate bar. But if you prefer high security insured gold storage, they have that too. And unlike Fort Knox, the gold is actually there, 100% owned by you. So don't wait to get started. Visit filibustedgold.com today for a free investment guide from Genesis Gold Group.
So my thoughts are, I guess I'm trying to see what would have all of a sudden happened that this would be triggered, this sort of review. But for me, it's interesting at the beginning because China is Australia's largest trading partner. And I think it's over one third, near almost 1/4 of their exports, or no, almost 40% of Australia's exports. And so it could be that they're actually pretty close to China. And so if they're going to be giving all this information to them, they don't want China to perhaps have access to it. So I don't know. I think to me, there's probably something around that. That's where my mind goes to start, but there might be something else as you keep talking.
I think that's a fantastic thought. Definitely a real fear with how pervasive China's intelligence network is, and then also just like the way they kind of get their fingers into everything. I don't know the exact situation in Australia, but I have definitely seen and heard a lot of sort of signs and whispers of Australia being too heavily influenced by China. I'll put it that way. Much too heavily influenced. But I don't know. You could say that about a lot of countries, but maybe it's worse in Australia than it is.
And I think that could even be a good case to have some sort of involvement, but I would say the framework would change significantly. It'd be like with Panama, like we saw what happened with Panama Canal and China. And so it was gifted or given to them after it was made, and tens of thousands of U.S. lives lost to make that. But then it was gifted to them, but then now China had control. So then, okay, well, maybe we're going to take it back. So it's the same thing here. We'd have to have measures in place to where that doesn't happen, but it still achieves our interests, mutual interests. So they would have to set it up in a way that in order for Australia to act against our interests, they would also have to act against their own interests, and therefore China's and act against China's interests. So yeah, I don't know. I think it makes sense to move forward with something, but maybe it needs to be adjusted depending on that.
So a couple of things I want to jump into. First, I want to jump into the pushback. So the pushback from the left, and then the kind of bipartisan pushback, and then why Europe is so freaking pissed off about this. So, okay, this is a little interesting. Y'all might find this a little interesting. So one aspect of pushback, Representative Joe Courtney, he's a Democrat from Connecticut. He's one of the most vocal advocates of AUKUS, and his district includes submarine builder General Dynamics Electric Boat. So it makes sense why he would be an advocate for this, because his district is going to be making a lot of money off it. I'm sure he's in it for other reasons other than that as well, maybe. But this is what he says. The new administration certainly has the right to review the trilateral AUKUS mission, but as the recent UK government's defense review determined, this is a defense alliance that is overwhelmingly in the best interest of all three AUKUS nations. He also said, to abandon AUKUS, which is already well underway, would cause lasting harm to our nation's standing with close allies and certainly be met with great rejoicing in Beijing. Some bipartisan pushback here. This is Republicans, Democrats alike exhort Trump, keep security pact with Australia and UK alive. And this article says defense policy is one of the few areas where Republican lawmakers have pushed back against the Trump administration, but their resolve is being tested with the Pentagon's review of AUKUS. So far, they have joined their Democratic colleagues. So what are the problems here? What are the potential problems? Well, let's look at this. There was a March report by the Congressional Research Service. So y'all hit on some very interesting points, and I think they tie into a few of these issues that I found when I was researching this. This report from Ronald O'Rourke warned that the lack of U.S. shipbuilding capacities, including workforce shortage and insufficient supply chains, could directly affect this agreement. So if the U.S. should sell, this is what the report says, if the U.S. should sell the vessels to Australia, the U.S. Navy would have a shortage of attack submarines for 2 decades. So this is one of the main issues is if we give you our submarines, what are we going to do, right? We've had a problem just meeting the demands of our own government when it comes to submarines, and now we're trying to sell some of these to another nation.
I think this is interesting because I just saw this week, Trump had, I think it was the president of South Korea, was that who it was, in the Oval Office, and they were talking about setting up shipyards here to have them come and help the U.S. build more ships. And so perhaps we're actually just importing the exporting of the shipbuilding for Australia. Maybe that's part of what's going on there. So we're increasing the capacity, but that capacity is going to be replaced or is actually to actually maintain ours while we sell to others. So that could be the case. I haven't looked at any of the numbers and the timing of that, and you don't exactly just flip up that like a pop-up tent, but at the same time, that could play into it.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I think Trump is very concerned with, obviously everyone, a lot of people on the left criticize Trump for the America First, agenda, right? But at the same time, he's just concerned with burdening America and its resources, when it comes to agreements with other nations. And here's one of the reasons why is because the United States currently spends a whole lot more on not just U.S. defense, but international security than Australia does. So the Trump administration has emphasized that Australia, they are wanting Australia to essentially step it up. And right now they're pressuring Australia to increase its defense spending from 2% to 3.5% of GDP. That's not a lot, right? That is, and here's the thing. Australia is in some ways is closer to China and I guess maybe we're probably the same distance away, but in some ways they should be more responsible for the Indo-Pacific region because they're right in the middle of it. And the United States is over here on the edge, and yet obviously we do a lot of the spending. We do a lot of the international security. The United States is always coming and stepping in, and getting involved. But here's the other reason that I think that Trump is wanting to do this review. And so I'm going to pull this up. Trump's belief in Australia using AUKUS subs in war could break the pact. Trump is concerned that, okay, if there's only so many subs to go around, and obviously if we step up our submarine production, like you said, Ryan, then that could potentially solve that issue. But if there's only so many subs to go around, who do you want to have those subs in their back pocket in case of an all-out war? So would Australia be willing to use the submarines that they have if the worst happened? That's Trump's concern. Is who do you want to have, if you go out to a battle, right, and you have your secret weapon or whatever, that's going to help you win. It's like who you're going to give that to, using Lord of the Rings as the reference. It'd be better in the hands of Sauron than the hands of whatever, like a dark elf or whatever, one of the orcs. It's like you give your best weapon to your strongest defender, right? So that's kind of the idea. Is he's doubting their resolve to actually use the subs in case of war. So we would be handing over weapons, and then they wouldn't even get used.
So what's the point?
He's afraid the war is going to break out, and Australia is going to not join in. Essentially,
you made me actually think
we're going to sell them our subs, and then they're not going to actually use them to do something helpful.
Right.
So
I think maybe the better metaphor there for the movie is Braveheart. You remember that scene where it's like William Wallace is going into battle and he has the one clan who's supposed to flank over the mountain on the side, and they roll up, they look at it, and they just turn around and ride off. That's the potential for Australia right there. Like, are they actually going to come and join us in this battle or what?
Well, so what's the point of in the first place? Like that, I mean, that is that why he's backing up and saying, oh, maybe not, but I don't know. I would think you would have some sort of agreements there.
I think he's putting them on the spot
explicitly. That's true.
I was just thinking, like, in true Trump fashion, he's probably just putting them on the spot in the public arena, because that's what he does in order to get people to actually bend to his will. He brings them right out in the open, and he does it like either with individuals or with entire countries. He'll just bring them out and say, hey, I'm concerned that this is what's going to happen. And they're like, oh, crap. Normally we talk about this behind closed doors, but he's calling this out in front of everyone. So we better actually, like, you know, it's kind of like he's forcing them to put it out publicly. Like the thing, like, if you want to lose weight, the best way to do it is to go on Facebook and say, my goal is to lose 20 pounds by the end of summer. Like, he's making them do that. Like, come on out and tell everybody what you're going to do, because we're going to hold you accountable. That would be my guess as to his strategy.
So he makes it seem like I think that he really means what he says, but he basically says this is at risk because of the X or XYZ, and then they come out, and it's basically a tactic to get them to commit to it and actually move the deal forward to close it, versus leaving it open or not getting it done as fast as you would want. So I can see that for sure. Yeah, I can see that for sure, that he wants it done, but this is a way to get what he wants.
My guess is this whole thing is probably going to come back to the biggest concern being Australia's personal military spending. I think that's going to be what it's going to be, because this sounds very similar to NATO and Trump pressuring the European countries to actually meet their commitments. I don't remember what the GDP spending is supposed to be for NATO. It was like 2% or 3%. It's a percentage or whatever that they're supposed to. It's not an absolute requirement in order to stay in NATO, but it's a goal that they're supposed to meet. For Trump, for years now, Trump has pressured Europe, and he's done it again this year and gotten them to start actually meeting those goals for a lot of those countries, to actually spend the money and to take a stake into the security of your own country, a sufficient stake. And I can see him basically using this deal as a bargaining chip for that, and be like, basically, hey, Australia, we're not actually going to go along with this and sell you these subs unless you put up more funding of your own military, because we actually need you to be a real stake here for international security. And if you don't have a military that's big enough, then there's really no point in us having this sort of agreement. I could see that, but I also think the shipbuilding thing is a real serious issue, because if we sell them subs and then we're just missing subs for decades because we can't build them. That's a huge issue. I have seen some stuff on shipbuilding recently, and apparently it's really hard to do in the United States because of all the regulations and stuff. And so I would not be surprised if Trump does, especially with him meeting with the South Korean president, if he tries to get some balls moving to actually, make new shipbuilding ability
regulations so that people can actually do it. Mm-hmm. Which is something that he has ran on his platform, as far as like we have too many regulations in this country and we need to cut them down.
Yeah, if you haven't noticed, we've gotten really bad at building anything in the United States, like ships, houses, whatever that is. Yeah. It's like everything's gotten more expensive, everything's gotten more difficult, and we're moving in the wrong direction as far as being able to like make our own stuff. So
I think I told this example before, but when I ran for office, I was talking to a business owner, and he said that depending on which inspector came, he had one door that was an exit only door, like a emergency exit door, and it had a push bar on it. And they said, this swings this direction. He said, actually, this needs to be this kind of door in that direction. And then the next time the guy came, he said, well, this is the wrong door. It needs to be this style of door. It was the other door that he already had. So he just bought two doors and just has both doors now. And he wasted thousands of dollars to do this. And it's like, they can't even tell him which one he needs, because they're both in the regulation, but which one's right? Well, it depends which inspector comes, I guess.
Crazy. Well, I think, Reese, I think your point about what Australia is willing to pay is probably the closest. And obviously, we don't know exactly. They don't know why the Trump admin called for this review, and they don't know the results of it. Should be in by November of this year. So we should see what they decide to do, why they decided to do it. So that should be coming down the pipeline. But this AUKUS deal is actually projected to cost Australia up to 368 billion Australian dollars, and I believe that's over several decades. But the kind of the not the critics of it, but the people that are like questioning whether Australia is going to go forward with it or not, they're just wondering, are they actually willing to invest that much? It's a lot. So one funny little finish to this story is that Australia keeps just like giving Europe the bird, if I can say that. Here we go. This is back in 2021, I believe. 2021. So this is after this agreement was first ratified. Stab in the back, France slams Australia, US over move to ditch 50 billion euro submarine deal. So what Australia did was they had, this is actually a 90 billion Australian dollar submarine deal, is what that translated to, with a French company, Naval Group, and they ditched them in favor of the US-UK pact and said, nice. Instead, we're going to buy submarines from the United States. And France got really, really mad. And Macron has actually made statements specifically about this and how terrible it was, and saying that they stabbed us in the back. And the funny thing about it is France is not mad at the UK for this at all, because they kind of see them as like a third party, but they're really mad at the US and at Australia. Mm-hmm. And then what happened this year was to kind of throw some more fuel on that fire. Australia was like, hey, we're going to cancel our deal with Germany as well, buying warships from them. So they have a major deal with them. And they said, you know what, forget you, Germany. We're going to buy these warships from Japan. Now, Germany's and Mertz has commented about this, and he's really pissed off at Australia now too. So they're just like screwing Europe over. And Canada has kind of lightened that pressure a little bit and saying, hey, we'll buy your warships, Germany, if you give us a good deal. So they've kind of taken over that market a little bit. But anyways, I just thought that was hilarious how Australia just keeps canceling deals with Europe and making them mad.
Maybe they don't want to work with communist leaders anymore. It'd be nice to see a little pivot from Australia, being like, maybe we don't really like this approach.
Yeah, considering where Australia's government has been in the last decade, I don't really see them as being like too different from the lefties over in Europe. So I don't know. That's hard for me to swallow.
Wishful thinking. That's
right. Gold is not just a backup plan if the world falls apart. It's an investment opportunity that could set you up for generations. There's never really a bad time to invest in gold, but you want to make sure you have the right guide, and that is where Genesis Gold Group shines. Whether you are a first-time buyer or a seasoned investor, their trusted expertise and competitive pricing makes them an easy choice. They offer tangible assets in case of emergencies, but they can also design the perfect IRA just for you. And they'll even cut through all that confusing red tape from the IRS. We at Filibusted love the genius design of the Prepper Bar, which breaks up into sections like a chocolate bar. But if you prefer a more high-security insured gold storage, they have that too. And unlike Fort Knox, the gold is actually there and 100% owned by you. Genesis Gold Group is a safe, simple, and convenient way to invest. Visit filibustedgold.com today for your free investment guide from Genesis Gold Group.